What's going on, friends? Welcome to another episode of the Main Gains podcast. With me, I have special guest Niamh Quilligan. Niamh, how you doing?
Good now, and yourself?
I am doing fantastic. Now, this is actually the second time that we are trying to record this podcast. The first one I actually forgot about and scheduled another personal training client during that time. So, my bad on that one.
No worries, it happens to us all.
So, Niamh, will you just give a little background to the audience about kind of like where you're from, who you are, what you do, things like that?
Yeah, so I'm Niamh. I'm from Limerick in Ireland. Grew up there, came to America when I was 18. Currently pro soccer coach with a youth club just outside Boston. Coached all my life, bounced around America, Canada since I was like 18, 19 years of age. Spent a few years at home during COVID. And yeah, just now coaching full time, bouncing around the place really.
So, you've played soccer your whole life?
Actually, funny story. No, I didn't really play soccer. I played on the side as a bit of fun. Didn't play a lot. Rugby was a big thing in our house growing up, so that was a main sport. And then I always played soccer, but not as competitively as I would have in the rugby background.
So, how did you manage to get a soccer coaching position?
So I've always loved coaching, rugby, soccer, whatever it may be. Soccer, I grew into quite quickly. I started coaching when I was maybe 14, 15, just youth leagues and stuff, youth teams, U6. And I just loved it straight away. And it was and just something different. I was playing a lot of rugby, so it was something different to do. Playing rugby, playing soccer as well as rugby on the side. But yeah, I don't know. I just started helping out in my local club and kind of took off from there, really.
Did you always want to come to the US and coach, or what was that a decision you made as you turned 18 and when you got older?
I think the US was always a target point for a lot of people back home. Earlier days, currently probably a little bit different, but years ago, America would have been the place to be. Everyone wanted to go to America either on holidays to work. You had to go and experience America. It was just like that big thing. I think when I was 16, I started learning about some coaches at the academy I was with that had done summer camp contracts and stuff in America. And I was like, that's where I want to go. So I knew kind of earlier on I wanted to try start looking for opportunities. Never really planned on being here full time or ever moving here, to be honest. It was always like just kind of a summer gig. And then when I was 18, I got a summer contract for 10 weeks and just decided to not go home.
What's the
So,
organization that you coach through?
so right, originally I coached through Challenger Sports, which is a big summer camp business. I did about 8 years with them, started at the bottom over in Texas doing camps. And I just gradually worked my way up. Ended up at this club just outside Boston with Galway Rovers. And I've been here, I think I'm going into my maybe sixth season. I don't know, COVID kind of messed with me, but I think my sixth season with them now. So I actually work for myself and I work for them directly. So I'm not contracted to anybody now, which is nice. So initially I was subcontracted through this other company where I did camps, clinics, academy training, that kind of stuff. And now I'm full time with them in a director role as of recently. So it's good learning curve.
Did you say 8 years in Texas?
No, I did 8 years with Challenger Sports. I only lasted 2 months in Texas. It was quite hot, and for an Irish person, it was very hot.
Where in Texas were you?
So the way the summer camps work is you go somewhere different every week. So I did everywhere from Dallas to El Paso. I did a week in Louisiana. So I had it all, and it was fantastic. It was just I didn't realize how big Texas was. So it was a lot of driving. Like in Ireland, if you go 2 hours up the road, it's like a day trip. And next thing you're off on an 8 hour drive to the next camp. It was insane. So it was definitely a learning experience for sure.
That sounds crazy busy. Were you able to play rugby at all during that time, or was it just soccer, just work?
So initially I didn't play at all when I came out. I'd say it was probably maybe year three I was out here and I kind of got back into the field of things playing. Summer was tough because especially my first summer I was really young, never really been out of Ireland, let alone on my own. And I just decided I'm going to go to Texas on my own, knowing nobody. So it was quite an adventure. So with the camps for the summer and even up until this past summer, pre-COVID, it would be very hard to play in the summer because you go to a different camp every week. So the way it used to work was we'd all have a base hotel, New England region, for example. We were based out of Rhode Island, down in Providence. So we'd all be back to base hotel on a Saturday, Sunday, you'll have a big staff meeting. There's about 200 of us, if not more. You meet the coaches you're about to go off with, and then these people who you met 5 minutes ago, you're now in a car with, and you're off to the next camp together for the week. So it was very hard to play. But then when I got an academy trainer role, which is more you're set in one area for the spring and fall season, that would allow me to play in the evenings when I'm not coaching because I was in one town and it was easier to find a spot to play.
Gotcha. That makes sense. What are your like hours now? What's your regular schedule look like?
I think as a coach, there's really no such thing as a regular schedule. It varies. I'm now in a director role, so I've got a lot of youth programs, and I'm also head coach of 4 teams. So the winter season is pretty quiet, and the summer's pretty quiet. Summer's nice. I get my weekends off. But spring and fall, it's 7 days a week, and you're all go. There's no time to think, especially when you have a lot of teams. So it's fun though. Do you know what I mean? They say it's the best job in the world because you're not really working. So it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of on the go, like 24/7. You're just always thinking. So it's good fun.
I definitely can relate to the whole, like as a coach, you kind of have a set schedule, but then so many things get thrown at you that it just is moving and adjusting all the time. It's fun, but it can be a little stressful at points.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think I'm kind of lucky I'm with a Premier Youth club, so it's club soccer. So I'm lucky in the sense our schedule is set at the start of spring and you know your practices. Your weekends are a bit scattered because, games is unpredictable. And as I said, I got 4 teams in different town programs. So that's going to shift a lot. But during the week, I'm pretty lucky that where I can get the rugby training on a Tuesday, Thursday, because my schedule is set. Only on the odd occasion I'd miss, but it's pretty well laid out. It's a lot, but I'm lucky to be in a structure where I have some bit of an idea of what's coming up each week.
So when you kind of moved to the US, did you have like full support from your family, or was it kind of like why are you leaving?
We came from a very big sporty house. I give credit to my parents, to be honest. I was always into sport. School wasn't my thing. Didn't really want to go to college. So I did kind of a year of what I call a Mickey Mouse course. It's just like a side course because the equivalent to high school and secondary school, my final exams, I say, weren't the best. Because school wasn't really my thing. So this opportunity came up, and I remember telling my mom, my dad. My dad was a bit more skeptical than my mom. My mom was just like, "You've got to do something," because I think she was going to kill me, to be honest. So credit to my mom more so to really give that push to be like, just jump on it. As soon as I got the interview day, I got the job straight away for the summer camp role. My dad was a little hesitant, but he understood what I was doing. Like they were always pretty cool with me coaching. But my mom was like, you just got to go. You got to do something useful and you're not sitting around home all summer. So that was kind of it. Like I only planned to go for initially, I think it was 8 weeks I was only meant to be gone for. I flew out the start of June and I was meant to be back like the start of August or something. But I ended up staying till mid-November. So I did that first June, July, and mid kind of half August in Texas. And then I got a trainer role and I moved down to the New England region. So I ended in around Massachusetts from there. So I did my fall season in Harvard, Massachusetts, which is like out in the middle of nowhere. But so I actually had applied to college and got in, but I decided to stay in America and turn down college. So
Dude, that's
that was
awesome.
an interesting choice. Yeah, it was. I think it was a choice. I think definitely my parents at first were kind of like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Because obviously college is a big deal, but they knew school wasn't my thing really. So I did that, and then I think I did about 3 years here, and I decided to go back to school and get my degree. But I actually did it in a way. I did it through London, so a little crazy at the time because I decided I wanted to do obviously in soccer. So I did coach and performance in football, which there's a university in Cambridge in England that does everything specific to football. A lot of tutors coach in the Premier League and stuff. So I did that online distance learning while coaching full time here, but also doing my winters in Canada at the same time. So I was studying in London. I was home in Ireland in the early part of the winter. I was in Canada in the middle of the winter, and then I was in America for the rest of the year. So it
That's
was a
a
little bit,
ton of travel.
yeah, so it was a lot. I was lucky I didn't have to be on site for college a lot. There was 2 weeks throughout the summer I had to be, and they were pretty understanding with overseas coaches being distance or students, I should say, being distance learning. So you could just go for a week residential, did all your practical stuff in literally 1 week of classes, and that was it for the year. So I was pretty lucky in that sense.
So, do you have a degree now? Like, is that
Yeah, so I graduated with a bachelor's, I think 2 summers ago, just before COVID started. So I didn't go back till late, but I finished. I got it in the end, so it was good.
I think that's good to note though, because sometimes it feels like there's this pressure to follow this timeline or this specific, like you got to do this before you do this. But in your case, you just went with your gut and you were like, I need a break from school. I don't really love it. I'm not very good at it at this point in my life. Let me go figure out what I actually want to do. And then that even opened up more opportunities for you in the future.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing was I love sport and that was always my thing. But I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no real set defined interest, even though I love coaching. It's not really a career at home. There's not a lot of money in it. So it was always like a side fun hobby. It was something I never really considered that could be a career. And then after doing a couple of years in America, also for visa circumstances, having a degree makes things a lot easier, especially a specialized degree in what you're doing. So I think after like 2 or 3 years, I decided this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like I want to coach as much as possible, as many places as I can get to. That's what I want to do. So that's when a couple of my buddies had done it. And they're like, oh, check out these two. There's two different universities that do online degrees in England. And one is specific to football. So I went with that one, or soccer, as the Americans would say. But so yeah, once I just decided this is what I wanted to do and I had a genuine interest, it made things a lot easier. I think for me and a lot of people, if you're not interested, it's hard to learn, which is why school can be tough sometimes. If you've no genuine interest or you're not going to use it, it's hard to put the head down to it. So it definitely took me a few years to figure it out. But once that switch flicked, it was pretty easy to figure out what to do. A lot of work, don't get me wrong. Studying full time and coaching full time with a 6 hour time difference was tough enough. But if you want it bad enough, you can find a way to make it work.
That's exactly what I was just gonna say. It just goes to show, like, when you actually are passionate about something and you want it, it is as hard as it is, it makes it easier because you're invested in it versus like this is something I have to do and I don't even like it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. So, and I think it was also, and credit to my parents as well. They never really pushed me into it. They kind of let me figure it out. It's like, oh, if you want to be in America, keep working, see where it goes. Whereas I think sometimes if your parents are pushing you into it for the sake of doing it, and they're the same with all my siblings, it's kind of gave us time to figure out what we wanted to do, and then figure out our own path, kind of way, like guide us, but also be like, if you're making a bad choice, they'll be like, this is gonna be a bad idea, but if you want to do it, off you go, that kind of way. So, I think credit to them for giving me that time just to figure out, hey, I don't like school, I want to coach, but we'll see what happens after that. So
Staying on kind of the coaching route, you mentioned that there's not really a lot of opportunity in Ireland to be like a high performing coach. What was kind
mhm.
of the biggest, or what are the biggest differences between coaching in Ireland versus coaching in the US and even Canada because you spent some time there?
Mhm. Well, I think Canada and America, especially in the club game, it's a money game, right? It's a business. You make a lot of money. Like players are paying a couple of grand a year to play. You're paying coaches. At home, the money isn't there. Like it's all volunteer coaches. Like you're paying, like when I play rugby and soccer at home, I'm paying like 20 to 50 euros a year to play, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? And most of the time, you pay your 50 euros and you get your shorts and socks with that. So it's a whole different environment. People play because it's the low key, it's the thing to do. There's a bit more passion and bite to it at home, I think. But the structures and organization side of things are much better here in terms of it's a business, right? Even the town sports here are like, I think one of the towns I run, it's like $200 to play per season. I'm like, you wouldn't even pay that for a year at home. So I think that would be a huge difference is just the money in it. It's definitely more of a business here. Whereas at home, it's more of a club base that it's all about the local community. So your local community, everyone buys into the club sports. In my town, it's rugby's huge. The soccer's getting there. They're hurling, the Gaelic football, the Irish sports, they're massive. And it's all about the fundraising, the volunteers, the raffles, all that kind of stuff. So everything's about that community piece. Whereas here, I think it's just more of a business. Yeah, they play their town sport, but when it comes to the club game, like you can get kids from any town playing in whatever town. You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to clubs. So, and you got kids traveling, like we pull from 4 or 5 towns here. Whereas at home, if you play, say, if I play at my local club, everyone's from that community. Do you know what I mean? So it's just a little different.
It is really interesting to start thinking about how sports has shifted in the US specifically, from kind of that initial just love of the game to commercializing it and creating businesses behind it, which I can see upsides and downsides too, because it provides opportunities, but it also can be a barrier to those who love the sport but either can't pay to play or like can't travel the distance.
Yeah, I think the money is a big restricting factor here, and I think the US system probably misses out on a lot of talent because of that. Like the local leagues and stuff are great, but to get that coaching and get to the next level, you have to be playing a club sport, and that's kind of the way it's trending. And you know, not every community has that set up or has a club locally or has, as you said, the funds to do that. So it definitely misses a lot of talent. I feel like, especially like in the inner city areas and stuff you'd get a lot of talent, and there's some more clubs popping up. I know in the Boston area and stuff, and it's a whole different game. But they just have that little bit more of a street edge, that kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely an interesting concept, but it's definitely got more business like here. Like at home, it has the private academies. I work for a good private academy at home, and I learned so much coaching during my 2 years coaching at home. It was a whole different ball game, and that was paid. But it's like our kids play with their local club, and then they train with us, and we're just like a local private academy, something extra for them to get proper coaching. And I made good money at home, but it's nothing to what I make here. Like it doesn't even touch it, which is insane because the room for growth and like as a career prospect here within sport, the opportunities are like endless. Whereas at home, it's just super limited, no matter in whatever sport. It's very, very limited. And unless you know somebody, it's very hard to get into a job, and getting paid to coach is really, really tough.
What is your favorite part about coaching?
I think it depends on the age group, but I love interacting with people and the kids, and like I don't know, I see seeing kids having success, and like I think sometimes for me it's the my lower level teams when they start winning games and clicking and really developing, and that's almost as good as my top level teams winning championships. I think that's probably my favorite thing, but probably just the enjoyment factor for kids leaving smiling, coming wanting to come to train and just enjoy it. In terms of the little kid stuff, I love just being a clown and just bouncing around with them. That's just kind of my thing. Like I don't mind it, but yeah, I think it's all about the kids, just making an impact with them and getting them to enjoy the game, and like teaching them stuff that's on the field, but also off the field that they're going to take away with them. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to develop them to be high school athletes at the end of the day. So that would be their next step. So I think that would be seeing them progress through the ranks and get picked for their high schools or whatever it may be. Probably is one of my favorite things.
Yeah, something that I have evolved in my coaching journey is when I first started, it was like my favorite part was like the PRs and things like that. And I
Mm.
still love that. However, now it's shifted into okay, this is like the weight room and the sports aspect is only a small, tiny part of this kid's life. And they're coming in with all this baggage or whatever that they're dealing with. So my priorities kind of and like fulfillment as a coach has now shifted from like performance to more like how can I actually impact this kid's life, and if it's through PRs and that makes them a better athlete and that provides them opportunities, that's fantastic. Or if it's like a heart to heart conversation that I have with them one day because they're having a rough day, and then it provides them insight to like, okay, either I'm not alone or like I can get through this and I have support.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And I think pre-COVID in particular, I think 2 years at home and COVID changed my coaching a lot. I was always very one way of thinking, always about winning games. Like you know me from rugby, I still hate losing. Like it's just not in me. But now I'm more open-minded in my coaching, understanding that every athlete needs something different, and they need something different to get the most out of them. But also that if you have a kid that doesn't want to play or isn't great at the start of the year and is really struggling, and now is a core part of your team by mid-season or the end of the season, that's nearly better than winning the championship at the end of the year and or winning tournaments, whatever it may be. So I think definitely learning as I went, and coaching at home was a big part of that. To be honest, just learning different ways because it's a whole different competitive nature at home, and you have to be more on the ball with things. Not that you don't hear, but it's just in a different manner. So I think it's just understanding that like how every kid literally needs something different. And you can all about winning, you come out with this and that, but if they don't want to play for you and they don't want to come training for you, you're not going to go anywhere. So I think building that relationship piece and connecting with your players is vital in everything you do.
Yeah, you brought up how that your coaching changed throughout COVID, what were some of those, like, that was about, how long were you home for? Like, how did that impact your coaching career and the trajectory of it?
So I was meant to be home for about 2 to 3 months, and I ended up home just over 2 years. It was the longest I've been home since I was 18. So the first couple of months, I thought that was the end of it. Like I thought my career is done. I didn't want to be home, back living with my parents in Ireland. I was like, this is terrible. Like I hated life, hated everybody. And then as I got into things, got back playing rugby at my local club, and then got in with a paid coaching job. And it turned out to be the best. COVID turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me, because at home the coaching is just a different level because players are at a different level. They've all played from a very young age and at a good competitive level. And there's no club in town at home. There's just club, if that makes sense. So it's like a mix of your club and town. There's no separate entities, if that makes a little bit of
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
So it was like everything had to be more structured. The expectations were higher from a coaching point of view. But also I had to adapt my coaching game because they like it's how do I explain it? It's like here you kind of need a bit more of a personality and a buzz, and have a bit of fun and joke around. Whereas at home it's a little bit more serious, especially the academy I was with. To like how your pitches are set up, like how your session is laid out. Everything is formalized. Everything needs to be the same. This is the structure we follow, and you couldn't wing it. Do you know what I mean? Like here, I plan all my sessions, but I also have a week where I might be like, oh, I'm just going to wing this because I have enough in my back pocket. At home, as soon as you start winging it, like you're done. And kids will notice it too. So it definitely taught me more about setting my own standard and my own expectations of myself, and performing to that, but also more on the analysis side of things. To like when I go home and break down my session, what went well, what went better, was it the group of kids or was it your delivery if it didn't go well? So initially I would have said COVID was going to ruin my career, but I think honestly it's the best thing that ever happened.
after you finally kind of had the green light to come back to the US, was it an immediate I'm going back, or was there some hesitation because you were having some success in Ireland, being like, do I stay here?
Yeah, so it was kind of playing on my brain. By halfway through the second year at home, I was like I'd have to get another job. Coaching wouldn't be my full time career. I was working in a gym at the time at home, because that was kind of like my side thing. And I was like, maybe I'll just can it. And then I got an email 2 weeks before Christmas to say, hey, your visa's delayed again. You'll be another 6 months. I was thinking, like, can I do this for another 6 months? Because I'm still living at home, making terrible money. Now I need to start thinking. 3 days later, I got an email to say visa approved. This all happened 6 days before Christmas, 2022. I think what year are we now? 23. Yeah, 2022. I
Yeah.
think not last Christmas, the Christmas before. I can't
Yeah.
do numbers. So I got the green light to get my visa. They said your passport will be in on I think it was the 22nd. So I was like, oh crap, this is happening quick. So in the space of 6 days, I went from not going back to America for another 6 to 7 months and considering not going back at all, to now packing my bag and flying within 2 days. So I literally got the email, had a night out with my best friends, picked up my passport and flew the next day. I flew on the 23rd, right before Christmas, because Ireland was going back into more COVID restrictions. So I remember chatting to my mom, being like, do I stay for Christmas? What do I do? And she goes, do you really want to be stuck for another year? And at the time, I was like, no, I got to go. I want to go. I love my club here. When I came back, I definitely struggled. First 2 months back, I was like, oh, I wish I was still at home, which was the first time in my life I'd ever thought that. Like it was always when I was in America, that's where I wanted to be. So it was a very quick turnaround if I didn't have time to think, especially with the lockdown restrictions, because Ireland and COVID was pretty ridiculous. So I was literally like 4 days, bang, 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 one after the other. I was on a plane and then I was back. So, and that was it. I landed. Everyone here had COVID at the time I landed. So I ended up working straight away. 3 days after I landed, I got COVID and I'd avoided it for 2 years. So everything happened in such a whirlwind. And once I got over all that, as later into that January period, I was kind of like, oh, have I made the biggest mistake here? Because now again, I was on the flip side of my coaching that I had been doing for the last 2 years didn't suit the environment that was in here. So I had to readjust, readapt, and tweak how I do things, how I deliver things, to find my feet again here with kids who I'd coached the whole way up, but I hadn't had them in 2 years. And kids change a lot in 2 years, and I had changed a lot in 2 years. So it was a lot of change in that first 3 months that took a lot of personal like questioning and just being like, what the heck am I doing? But I have a lot of good people around me here and at home who were like, just wait it out because this is what you want. You just need to find your feet again, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of led me into thinking like how did you deal with all of that change? And clearly you had a support system.
Yeah, no, I'm lucky. I got a couple of families here who are, I call them my American mom and dads. One of them have come to visit me in Ireland, and I'll often go up to them and they'll pull out a beer and they'll be like, just sit down and take a breath. And I like it gets overwhelming at times because everything happens so quick, and I spent so long at home adjusting my coaching to perform at a certain level to then come back and readjust. And it was just like, what the heck are you doing? So I think it was a lot of personal reflection, writing things down, prepping everything a little bit better, and a little bit tighter, but also just relaxing and enjoying it. I think a couple of people had said to me throughout that time, being like, "Why do you coach?" I was like, "Because I like to coach." And it goes, "Yeah, so if all else fails, just have fun with it." And once I got back into that piece of just having fun with it and rolling it, and when I relaxed a bit, my players relaxed a bit, and then everything just started clicking.
That's awesome, man. What are your future coaching aspirations? Like, where do you see Niamh going?
Right now, I honestly don't know, and I've been asked this a couple of times this week, which is funny. I right now I love coaching everything. And I think that's something I didn't up until 2 months ago. I always was like, I want to coach college and I want to coach high school. Like high school is my next step, college is going through my next step, and that's what I want. And now I'm like, I don't know if I want that because I love coaching everything. I like having the 3-year-olds that I can be a race car with, and I like having the older, super competitive teams that you got to be like an elite coach with, if that makes sense. Um, so I think in the next few years, I always want to keep adding my licenses, keep learning, and then just see where it goes with this club. To be honest, there's no real set plan at the minute. It's just keep enjoying it, because if I keep enjoying it, I'm going to keep learning and improving. I think that's my biggest thing right now. And if the kids are happy, then my job's a bit easier.
I found the more I try to plan what the direction I want my life to go in, the more stressed I get when either things don't go to plan or it's like it is going to plan, but it's not what I want. So I'm kind of with you on the like, I guess we'll just see where it goes and you just kind of keep doing the right things that you know are gonna elevate you and like project you further, no matter where that projection is.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think for me personally, anyway, the more further down the road I think, the more overwhelmed and stressed I get. And then, like, I'm almost 30 and my friends are like getting married, having kids. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing in my life? But everyone's on their own path for a reason. I mean, everyone has a different path in what they want to do and different career goals, different life goals. And I think it's just that day by day piece. Because if you look 3 years down the line and you're like, I have to get to this, and next thing that's all you're focused on then. So you're losing time in that current place because you're so focused on what's in the future that hasn't even happened yet. You've lost the enjoyment factor of what you're doing in the current time. So I think that's just short term at the minute, is just to keep learning, keep watching, keep adding, and just keep enjoying is kind of my thing. I'm coaching full time, I'm playing rugby on the side, and I'm just having a bit of fun with it. So I'm not really losing at anything in this current point, anyway. I don't think so. I think that would be my big thing for the next while.
Well, Niamh, I've loved having you on. I think we covered a lot, right? About one, your coaching journey, but how you evolved as a coach and how one thing like COVID, for example, looks like a closed door, but yet it kind of forced you to decide like, do I change or do I just accept what's happening to me? And then you chose to change, and that brought you back to the States, giving you more opportunities than you probably thought possible in Ireland. So I want to thank you again for coming on, and I'll open the floor to you one last time to just kind of say whatever's on your mind to either young coaches, young players, or like about the journey or whatever.
I think in terms of young coaches and players, I think realizing every moment that happens in sport does generally happen for a reason. So it's what you make out of that, what's happening, and taking that opportunity. If you take it as a negative, that's the way it's going to be. But if you have an open mind and you're like, I'm going to make this into a positive situation, you're always going to have a positive outcome. So I think a bit of hard work with a positive attitude can take you a lot further than any bit of talent can do.
That's awesome, man. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of the Main Games podcast. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review on whatever you're listening to the podcast on. And I'll see you guys in the next one.